And welcome back to another daily devotion. I'm Pastor Roy here at Woodlawn Christian Church in Lake City, Iowa, and this devotion is for Friday, March 31st of 2023. We have made it to the end of the week and the end of the month, but we are in a new chapter. We have been working our way through 1 Corinthians, and today we are going to jump into chapter 11. We're going to look at the first 16 verses, and we've come to this section about head coverings, which can be a little contentious, and some people they get a little riled up and their backs up about this a little bit. I don't think that that's really necessary nor needed, should I say. But let's try to figure out what Paul is telling us here. But it is some of the, Paul has a lot of things that we can get a little bit contentious about. And he warns us about that at the end of this. They actually translate the word contentious in here. And this is one of those. But the important thing for us to remember here, I believe, is this is not talking about sin, okay? This is not talking about something that is you cannot do it. This is against the law. Or against the principles. It's not a sin. These are things that are practices, okay, or traditions, all right? And traditions change. Cultural things change. Things that are sin don't change. So the argument about, talking about homosexuality that we talked about before being a cultural thing, that was a sin. And he explicitly stated it as such. Here he explicitly states that these are traditions, all right? Big difference. All right. So without further ado, without getting myself in more side of somebody, let's jump into chapter 11 and look at verses 1 through 16, shall we? Be imitators of me as I am of Christ. I commend you because you remember me in everything and maintain the traditions even as I have delivered them to you. But I want you to understand that the head of every man is Christ. The head of a woman is her husband, and the head of Christ is God. Any man who prays or proselytizes with his head covered dishonors his head. But any man or woman who prays or proselytizes with her head unveiled dishonors her head. It is the same as if her head were shaven. For if a woman will not veil herself, then she should cut off her hair. But if it is disgraceful for a woman to be shorn or shaven, let her wear a veil. For a man ought not to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of God. But woman is the glory of man. For man was not made for woman, but woman from man. Neither was man created for woman, but woman for man. That is why a woman ought to have a veil on her head because of the angels. Nevertheless, in the Lord, woman is not independent of man, nor man of woman. For as woman was made from man, so man is now born of woman, and all things are from God. Judge for yourselves. It is proper for a woman to pray to God with her head uncovered. Does not nature itself teach you that for a man to wear long hair is degrading to him? But if a woman has long hair, it is her pride, for her hair is given to her for a covering. If anyone is supposed to be contentious, we recognize no other practice, nor do the churches of God. Okay, so he's warning about being contentious, which, boy, the church in Corinth, remember, is a very contentious church, and he's kind of trying to say, now, there's two different ways to take that last part, actually. Some say that he's laying down the law, don't argue with me. Others saying, if you don't agree, then forget about it. I don't know which way to go on that. I suspect Paul's more laying down the law. Paul seems like a more laying down the law kind of guy. But again, this is not a law. This is instructions from Paul that as to a tradition that has been handed down, not something that is a sin. For a woman to not wear a hat or a veil on her head or her face, that's not a sin. That would be something that they might take offense at culturally. Likewise, for a man not to have his hat on during the Pledge of Allegiance, for say, or the Star Spangled Banner, that's not against the law. But we might look at you like, why are you not? Especially in the Midwest. I don't know about on the coast. But here in the Midwest, you go to a rodeo and you don't take your hat off, you're going to be getting some dirty looks. And somebody's probably going to slap you on the shoulder from behind you, or because of it. Hey, you forgot, take your lid off. So at any rate, I digress. So these are traditions, not laws, and that's very, very important to remember. As I reiterate, um, I have looked at or seen one Jewish Christian or a Christian of Jewish descent, so to say, to make the argument that this talking about this veil here, that it's talking about actual physical hair. I don't know if I go along with that or not. It's possible that that's what it is. It's just that here Paul is using the word veil and meaning covering. The word actually means covering, doesn't mean veil. It actually means covering, something to cover your head, which hair does do that. I know because I don't have any. I don't have no covering. That's why I wear a hat most of the time to keep my head from being chilly. Because even unless it's warm outside, hot outside, um, it can be a bit chilly when you have no hair on your head whatsoever. So, anyway, back to the topic here at hand. The point is that this is a cultural thing, and the big part of it here is that we're in this very decadent society in Corinth. This den of inequity, and it is believed and thought that the temple prostitutes would go around with shaven heads, the women, that was, or they might have their hair, long hair, but not bound up, but flowing. But they're thinking here that the temple prostitutes had shaven heads, and that by doing that, by having your head exposed, you are standing out as being a temple prostitute, which you don't want to do if you're a Christian. That's not the way to be. And it's perhaps some of them, fallen people come to Christ all the time. That's what we're out to do, is to bring fallen people to the Lord. That's guess what? That's what we're supposed to be doing. And so there's no doubt they probably had some women that had one time been temple prostitutes. It was amongst their number. And it doesn't say that, we don't explicitly say that, but we can assume that fairly safely, I think. And perhaps because they're used to that, they still were keeping their heads shaved because they were used to that. That was their norm, so to say. And so perhaps that's part of what he's talking to. We're back to that old thing where we don't have the other side of what's going on here. We don't have what exactly Paul's responding to directly. We have to try to infer it from what Paul's response is back to them. But he is commending them because at least they're trying to maintain those traditions. Again, not laws, traditions. Anyway, so we can take these things and use it to, if you are of the mind to degrade women, you can use it for that. If you're not, then I don't see where. To me, it does not. He is just saying that this is the order of creation, the creation story. Man created Adam. From Adam Eve was created from his rib. All of that. So he's reiterating the creation story. Okay, and that's what's going on. And he mentions the angels in here, and some think that that's talking about the angels being tempted by the women, talking about some of the stuff back in Genesis. I don't know. It's possible. He doesn't really belabor it. He just says, don't do it. You might tempt the angels. It doesn't even say that it's tempting the angels. That is why a woman ought to have a veil on her head, because of the angels. It doesn't say there's tempting in it, but people think that's what he's inferring. Again, I don't know. That's one of those puzzling verses, that one is. Exactly what is Paul trying to get at there? I don't see it as being a point on which we should make our theology stand. Let's put it that way. This is about practices. This is not about laws. Some of the stuff we've talked about before isn't laws. Some of that stuff is stuff that we don't argue with, that we don't try to, that we do because we're contentious, as Paul warns us not to be. But those are different than here. Traditions change. We typically don't wear hats in worship. We would not do that. I would feel very strange wearing a hat, during worship. We did have one day where they had the idea, the Christian Council came up with the idea of having Hat Sunday, and we were all supposed to wear caps or hats, and I had a cap on that day preaching. That felt really odd. I didn't like it. It didn't work for me. Maybe I would think that way if it was cold on the stage and the sanctuary. But it's never cold on the stage in the sanctuary. It's always very warm with the lights up there, so don't need my hat. At any rate, back to the topic at hand. That's what I see in here. It's not in any way trying to be degrading to women. Please don't take it that way. Please don't take that from it and take offense at that. Please don't use that to try to create offense. This is not about division. Paul is saying the idea is about unity. The idea is about showing people that you're part of the fold, and that's why he's not wanting the women to have their heads shaved, because then they look like temple prostitutes. There's the idea also that some of the likewise some of the male prostitutes had long hair, and if men had long hair, they would look like a male prostitute, and that was not a good thing either. Not good. We take a dim view on practicing of prostitution. We welcome them in, but we need to go and sin no more, like the woman caught in adultery in John. And something else I wanted to say, but I can't think of it now. We'll save it for another time. With that, I'm going to let you go. It's Friday. Have a blessed weekend. Have a blessed day. And please, please, please be a blessing to someone today. And here I thought this was going to be a short devotion and it went long. Who knew? God bless you all. Take care. Bye-bye.